So I was thinking about something the other day and came across, well, looked up some articles to kind of, show what I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to make a video about this. Well, there's actually a handful of topics I wanted to bring up here, but um, anyway, this is from an article from CBS saying, "Who buys lottery tickets? Those who can least afford them." And let's look it up here. Let's read a little about it here. Uh, A survey released Wednesday by Bankrate found 28% of Americans who earn less than $30,000 a year play the lottery at least once a week. They spend $412 a year on tickets. Other financial vices of low-income Americans include restaurant food and prepared drinks like coffee and smoothies. In addition to lottery tickets, those items account for $2,100 or 13% of their annual income on average, Bankrate found. Presumably, higher earners found different venues to burn their cash. Households with incomes of 75,000 or more spend an average of $105 a year on lottery tickets, a quarter of what low-income households spent. The survey of 1,000 Americans found. Still, people of all income groups blew money on restaurants and takeout food, with 38% committing that financial crime at least three times a week. Bankrate found 1 in 4 boys, at least three prepared non-alcoholic beverages a week. I don't know why they don't bring up women there. Um, these expenditures offer an opportunity to save, and lottery tickets are especially good example of throwing money away. After all, an individual stands a better chance of getting struck by an asteroid or killed by a shark than winning the Mammoth Powerball and Mega Millions jackpots earlier this year, CNBC found. The idea of striking it rich by winning the lottery is enticing, but you can earn a guaranteed return by putting the money in a high yield savings account, Amanda Dixon, a Bankrate analyst, said in a statement. Um, anyway, I mean, the first thing I would mention too is that you shouldn't keep your savings in a savings account. I think anyone who suggests doing that is an idiot for the simple reason that you're literally earning like what, 0.1%, maybe zero point 0.2 if you're lucky. Like when you account for inflation, not only are you losing money, but you're losing most of that money. Um, so again, that doesn't make any sense. But again, there's a handful of things I wanted to bring up here. The first and most obvious one being I added it up, that $412 a year, and if those people would invest that money uh, over 40 years, it would be about $100,000. Again, depending upon the interest rate. Again, 10%, you'd probably be over. Under that, 7%, you'd probably be a little less. And again, $100,000, again, depending on who you are, that may be a lot of money, that may be not a lot of money. But for someone making $30,000 a year, that's a ton of money, right? That's over 3 years' pay right there that they could have. And the other thing I should have did that I didn't do is add up this amount, this 2,100, because this would be a lot more. I mean, this is what, more than 5 times that amount. So you're looking at probably, I would say probably 750,000, just if I'm guessing off the top of my head. So again, like if these people literally just invested even half of this money, that's probably enough to retire on, assuming that you still get, assuming Social Security and all that kind of stuff is still solvent, by then, but which it probably won't be, but um, assuming it will, right? And this is the craziest thing, right? In that, again, we hear all the time about the wealth gap, right? But the reality behind this kind of stuff is that wealth is usually just a representation of, number one, intelligence, and number two, work ethic, conscientiousness, those kind of things. Not always. There's always exceptions to rules. There's a lot of very intelligent people that work minimum wage jobs. Um, and there is some people that have very low intelligence that are worth a lot of money. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule, but on average, again, the one thing we know beyond a shadow of a doubt is that the higher your IQ, the more likely you are to earn on average, and obviously vice versa, right? So this is the problem that people don't seem to want to. I don't understand why we don't want to talk about more when it comes to the wealth gap and dealing with poverty and all this kind of stuff, is that if we want these problems to go away, we need to incentivize good decisions. And we're not incentivizing good decisions by incentivizing poor people to do this. I mean, 30,000. I mean, this stuff all it's all kind of irrelevant, because if you're 20 years old and you're still living with your parents, 30,000 is an insane amount of money, right? Because you probably have very little, if any, expenses. But again, if you live in New York or San Francisco, that's you're probably homeless on $30,000 a year, right? So again, there is some nuance in there as well. Again, maybe if you live in a rural area, 30,000, that's still you're probably not dirt poor, right? You're probably a little below average in the area, but you probably still have a half decent house, right? So you're getting by, right? So again, that's another thing we got to keep in mind here. But again, the main point I'm trying to bring up here is the data is very clear that the less money you make, the the poorer decisions people tend to do with their money, right? And this is the big problem, well, one of the endless problems with giving poor people free stuff, is that they spend it in a stupid way. This is the problem with giving, again, all this free money that's being given out these days. People go and they spend it on stupid stuff. And this is the exact reason why the free market is better than government, because the free market allocates money in the most efficient way possible, at least assuming there's no government interference, which there usually is, but it's just hypothetical here, right? Um, and again, that's the reason why we can't keep doing what we're doing. So again, the other point here too is that this is something people really need to keep in mind too, is that you gotta, these left-wing politicians and all this stuff that constantly complain about this stuff, if they're not bringing stuff like this up, again, I really don't care what they have to say. I made a video a while back. It was, I don't remember what the exact percentage is, so I'm not going to try and cite it. I don't want to misspeak, but it was a staggering amount of percentage of people that literally are living paycheck to paycheck. In that, if they had, I think it was like a $400 or a $500 bill, they would have to either they would go into have to go into debt some way to pay that off, right? But again, you look at this here, the average person making under 30,000 a year spends $412 a year on lottery tickets. Oh, wouldn't you know, if they save that money, okay, they would be fine, right? They would be fine. And again, I'm not saying that that's going to completely solve people's problems, like obviously not. But again, this is the other problem too. Like, none of this stuff is taught in schools. Like, why is this stuff not taught in schools? Why are we not telling these people, oh yeah, you could play the lottery at the rate you're playing it and continuously have your 1 in a million chance, or you could save that money and have $100,000 30 or 40 years from now. Same thing goes for this stuff. Again, how many people do you know that get a coffee every day? They spend $4 or $5 on a coffee or a latte or whatever stupid thing they buy. Again, add up how much money that is per month, put that into a compound interest calculator, you know, do 7-8%, nothing, 7%, fairly conservative. That's below what the market average is, and look at how much money you would have, right? And a lot of people say, oh no, you would just spend the money, right? But that's just coming from a place of just pure ignorance, right? It's just pure ignorance. And it all comes back to, number one, as a society, we incentivize bad decisions in so many ways. I'm not even going to get into them. I've been into them a lot before. Um, and number two, we bail people out for said bad decisions, right? So again, we encourage people, is short of the government literally telling people to make bad decisions, like having press conferences and commercials saying we want you to spend your money on stupid stuff. I don't know what more we could do to change things, right? So that's the first thing. But the other important aspect of this too that I think really needs to be brought up, is that I already kind of touched on, is again, one of the problems with basically the leftist thinking is that the leftist thinking is, and one of the ways they justify like massively high taxes on the rich is that, and again, the other thing that you need to know too, whenever the left talks about, oh, we got to tax the rich, right there, they always frame it as, oh, we're only going to tax the billionaires, right? But the reality is that usually it's anyone making six figures, a lot of times even anyone making above whatever the median salary is, right? So whenever the left talks about, oh, we got to tax the rich, anyone you know who makes more than, 70, 80,000, almost certainly 100,000, their taxes are going up. So again, they make it seem like it's just the evil rich, so they can afford it. Well, in reality, if you're making 70, 80, you're by no means rich, right? 100,000 again, 100,000 in San Francisco, Toronto, Vancouver, New York, you're middle class at best, right? So again, that's another thing that I just can't stand, that they always manipulate people about. But the other thing is that, like I brought up, wealthy people tend to be wealthy for a reason. Again, the left always frames it as, oh, they just got lucky. But in reality, it's almost, again, there's the fair share of people who do really shady stuff. I'm not denying those people don't exist. But on average, wealthy people are wealthy because they're really good with money. And again, they're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. Again, when you talk to the average person about investments and stuff like that, again, people want to have they want zero risk, but they want to maximize returns. But again, if people just don't understand how this stuff works. Again, you look at hedge funds. How do hedge funds? Why do they make so much money? How they make so much money is that, number one, they work like 80, 100-hour weeks, which again most people aren't willing to do. Um, and number two, the big thing is they tend to use as much leverage as they possibly can, right? And that they're so, and this is why, that one of the big reasons why the housing crisis happened in '08, because a lot of they were so levered up that, being levered up works great when the economy's doing good and when things are going good, but when it goes bad, the whole thing goes belly up because things are so levered that it's impossible to cover the margin, basically. I mean, there's obviously a lot more that goes into it, but um, so yeah. But again, the point is that people, they don't understand this basic stuff, right? They don't understand the basic stuff. And that, again, wealthy people are wealthy for a reason. It's usually not luck. Now, being born more intelligent than the next person is luck. Yeah, obviously. Um, but that's never what they bring up, right? They never bring it up. They never frame it like that. They never say, oh, you're only earning, $250,000 a year as a doctor because you were born more intelligent and you just got lucky, right? Because that is true. I mean, to an extent, right? Obviously there's a lot of work. A lot of people put a lot of work, and I'm not taking that away, but for some people, again, your IQ is luck, right? It's luck of the draw. Um, but the left will never bring that up. And why will they never bring that up? Because that debunks almost everything else they say, right? And that, oh, well, blacks, or the cops only go after blacks more because of racism. No, it's actually the IQ thing, right? Oh, minorities are only poorer than whites on average because of racism. When in reality, no, it's the IQ thing, right? So again, they're right in it in a way, but they're wrong in what's causing it. And they think that, oh, it's exploitation and capitalist greed. And no, it has nothing to do with that. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. And the important thing here is, as a society, the way to improve, again, like the economy grows, like what actually causes the economy to grow? Again, the Keynesians get it completely wrong, because the Keynesians think that, oh, if government money printing equals economic growth. But again, well, any actual economists that actually know what they're talking about know that that's BS, right? Because, and if that was the case, then, um, you know, credit card debt would increase your ability to, spend and whatnot, right? But everyone knows that, yeah, it does in the short term, but it doesn't in the long term. Um, so what actually causes the economy to grow? What actually causes the economy to grow is producing goods and services more efficiently, or just, more of them, right? um, who can produce goods and services the cheapest, right? Why is Amazon bigger than the average, your run-of-the-mill bookstore? Well, they can do it in a more efficient way, right? You order something, if you Prime, you can get it the next day. They're within the next 5 to 10 years, it's probably going to be within 12 hours. Hell, for all we know, it might come an hour later. Like who knows? So again, why are the why do these companies get so big? Why are they so profitable? Because they can do things more efficiently than the next guy, right? And as a society and as an economy, if we want things to grow and get better, we need to allow resources to end up in the hands of the people that can use it the most efficiently. This is the fundamental reason why increasing taxes in any way, shape, or form doesn't benefit people as a whole. Right? People say, "Oh, we give it to the poor people and basically give it to them for free stuff." Okay, it helps them in a way, but at the end of the day, it doesn't help them. Right? Like giving a crackhead more crack to help deal with their crack addiction, okay, it's going to help them in the here and now, but it's not going to deal with the problem in the long run. Right? So this idea we can just tax people more and give it to poor people, it doesn't fix the underlying problem. It doesn't fix it at all. Right? So again, as a society, if we want things to grow, if we want things to get better, um, resources need to end up in the hands of the people who can use them the most efficiently. And a lot of the time, that means that certain people are going to get very wealthy. Other people are going to be poor. But again, if you want things to improve, you need to allow people who make bad decisions to suffer the consequences of said bad decisions and vice versa. When you tax the ever living what out of wealthy people, you lower the incentive for them to produce, and vice versa. And this is why things are so stagnant as a society these days. This is part of the reason why, again, median wages haven't gone up in over 20 years now. But again, cost of housing is going up 5-10% a year, even more than that in certain areas, right? Cost of living is going up consistently. Is poverty getting any better? Again, the government is spending more money than ever on these issues. Has poverty gotten better? Again, look at the government. The I don't know what the numbers are in Canada, but I think it's like 25 or 30% of American dollars in existence were created in the last year. Did that fix poverty? Is poverty gone? No, it's not. In fact, it's probably worse than it was over a year ago. In fact, I'd be shocked if it wasn't. So again, the solutions to these problems in society, they're really not all that complicated, right? They're really not all that complicated. The problem is that they all come back to we again, that's not that you have no sympathy for people, right? It's not that you have no sympathy for people, but the a lot of times the way to improve a problem in society, it's to simply prevent other people from falling into the said problem in the future rather than trying to deal with someone in the here and now, right? So again, if you really care about poverty, your biggest issue should be how do we prevent poverty in the future rather than how do we prevent poverty in the here and now? Because most people who live in poverty are going to be in poverty no matter what you do. The other big thing with lottery winners that proves my point as well, that they don't show it here, but I think it's very obvious and you could easily find it, is that um, vast majority of lottery winners lose their, or well, not lose, but they spend all the money, right? In that, I don't know what the exact number is, but I know it's the vast majority of lottery winners have a lower net worth 10 years down the road than they did at the time of them, right before they won it. And again, this is just proving my point that there's some people in society that no matter what you do, they're going to be in the crappy situation that they're in. Right? In that if being wealthy was just is just luck of the draw, right? Okay, well then you should see people who win the lottery down the road be every bit as wealthy. And that you can tell people, you can tell this kind of stuff right away. Like right away, you could snap your fingers. Ask people what would they do if they won the lottery. Almost everyone, oh, it was I would retire from my job. I would buy depending on how much it is. I'd buy a house, two houses, maybe cars, vacations, all this kind of stuff. In other words, they would spend their money on largely depreciating assets. Again, house technically isn't a depreciating asset, but again, they um, if and again, like what would a smart person do? Like what would someone like me do if I won the lottery? If I wanted to buy, so let's say I wanted to buy a house. Okay, well, what I would do is um, I would buy. Let's take a better example. Let's say maybe I wanted you win $1 million, right? You win $1 million. Okay, well, what I would do is instantly, number one, I would max out my whatever my tax-free savings account is, or the U.S. equivalent. I would max that out. I'd probably put, you know, maybe about half of that amount into crypto. Uh, Next thing would be probably buy a couple apartments, buy them, pay a what are those places called? Basically, a property management thing. Like basically, you would rent out your apartment or house and give them a cut of the profits to deal with all the headaches, basically, right? And that, let's say you rent an apartment out for $2,000. You say, okay, I'll give you $500 a month to manage this, basically, and deal with all the headaches. Okay, then you got $1,500 a month coming in that you have to do absolutely zero work at all to get that money. That's what smart people would do, right? Again, like what would Elon Musk do? What would he do if he got a bunch of money? Okay, well, he'd probably start a company, or he'd expand his own companies. That's what smart people do with their money, and that's why we want. And again, I'm not saying that we allow these corporations and stuff to unjustly enrich themselves, make profits. I'm simply saying allow the free market to operate. If Elon Musk can find ways to invest that's so much more superior, if he can build companies at a far higher rate than competitors, if he's going to be the first trillionaire, by all means. Because if Elon Musk becomes a trillionaire, that probably means that he absolutely and utterly destroyed the competition. Same goes for Jeff Bezos. Now, the problem nowadays is that we don't have a true free market. That is the big caveat. That again, people think that we do, but we really don't. I'm simply saying in an actual free market, because in an actual free market, I know Tesla and SpaceX. I think they've got some public money. I think the same goes for Amazon. These kind of corporations, they probably wouldn't be as big as they are if we actually had a true free market. But again, you understand my point, right? So at the end of the day, the other thing too is that you really can't have more sympathy for people than they have for themselves. Someone blowing money, especially a poor person, on lottery tickets, it's them confessing that they really don't care about their well-being. So again, this is another just terrible thing we do in society, is that we care for people more than they care about themselves. You cannot do that and actually think that it's going to work out in the end, right? You care for people as much as they want to care for themselves, and if they refuse to care for themselves, okay, their loss, right? Their loss. It's not our loss, not my loss. It's their loss, right? Now, again, I'm all for helping. Maybe not through coercive government taxation, but I'm all for helping poor people who genuinely have fallen upon hard times. Absolutely. I'm all for punishing rich people who steal money from people or unjustly enrich themselves. I'm not saying I'm not for either one of those things. I'm simply saying if a rich person enriches themselves through no coercion, they don't steal, by all means. If they want to become a trillionaire, I don't care. Same goes the other way around too. If you're making $30,000 a year and you blow all your money on stupid stuff and you lose your job and you can't afford to pay your rent, you kind of should suffer the consequences of making stupid decisions, right? Um, And again, I'd like to hear arguments, to the contrary, because I don't think there is any, but I'd love to hear it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. But I really could talk forever about this stuff, so I'm going to leave it there. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, I would very much appreciate whatever support I can get. But at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.